I dropped the plate when she said it, not by accident. My hands let go. It shattered across the tile, and so did I. "You're not even on the lease," she spat, arms crossed, eyes narrowed, like I was some stranger trespassing in her life. "This apartment should be mine." That line, it wasn't just words. It was a blade, and it went in deeper than anything she'd ever said to me. I didn't scream. I didn't fight back. I just stood there, trembling, tears running down my cheeks like I was made of water and pain. My knees buckled. I leaned against the wall to stay upright, feeling my heartbeat echo in my ears. My daughter, the little girl I carried through storms, fed when I had to skip meals, raised with every ounce of my soul, looked me in the eye and tried to erase me. Let me know where you're listening from. I always love seeing how far these stories travel. And if this story speaks to you, share your thoughts below. Don't skip, because what happens at the end will surprise you more than the betrayal itself. I didn't speak for a long while. I watched her walk into the living room, barefoot, careless, stepping over the shattered pieces of porcelain like they were nothing. Like I was nothing. That apartment had been our home for 37 years. She took her first steps on that same tile, said her first word by the window. I used to tape her drawings on the fridge with tiny clothespins and clap like she'd just won an award. And now, she was trying to evict me from my life, from my past, from the home I built one sacrifice at a time. I wanted to scream. Instead, I walked into my room and shut the door gently, as if I didn't want to wake something. But it was already awake. The part of me that had always been quiet, always patient, always giving. That part cracked with the plate. I sat on the edge of the bed, hands folded, and just stared at the floor. 37 years of motherhood. 37 years of quiet devotion. And now my own daughter wanted me gone. She didn't know. She didn't know who she was dealing with anymore. The next morning, she acted like nothing happened, said she had an appointment and left in a rush. Didn't even say goodbye. The same girl who used to blow kisses from the doorframe. I looked around the kitchen, the light coming in soft and yellow, touching everything with memories. The counter where we made birthday cakes. The wall still marked with her height scribbles from ages 6 through 15. I ran my fingers over those pencil lines. I remembered how she used to giggle when I checked her growth. "I'm almost as tall as you, Mama," she'd say. And now, she thought she had grown so big she could throw me out. It didn't start with that argument. No. That moment was just the knife's final twist. The betrayal had been quiet at first. Little jabs. Passive remarks about ownership, about the future, about how people my age should start thinking about downsizing. But I was too hopeful, too trusting. I thought she was just stressed. I told myself she didn't mean it. That deep down, she still loved me. Now I saw it clearly. She had a plan. She had been building it behind my back, and I had just been clinging to memories, thinking they were armor. I went into the living room and opened the drawer beneath the old stereo. The envelope was still there, untouched. My lawyer's number, the property folder, the receipts. I held it in my hands, heart pounding. She didn't know the truth. She thought I was just a tenant, a burden, someone whose time had passed. She had no idea what I really owned. But I said nothing. I didn't storm into her room. I didn't reveal my hand. I just slid the folder back into place and began preparing quietly, piece by piece. She thought she'd won. She thought her mother was just a tired old woman. But I was far from tired, and I was done being quiet. She used to sleep curled up beside me, her tiny feet pressed into my ribs like I was her mountain. I used to run my fingers through her hair until she drifted off. Back then, this apartment was our entire world. We had nothing else. No husband, no second income. Just me and her, and whatever courage I could scrape together to get through another day. I worked nights at the diner, weekends at the hospital gift shop. I remember counting coins for milk, skipping dinners so she could eat her fill. But I never let her know that part. I wanted her to grow up feeling safe, feeling loved, feeling like the world was generous and soft. I made this place into a sanctuary for her. I painted her room sunshine yellow with little stars above her bed. I bought second-hand bookshelves and filled them with fairy tales. On Sundays, I let her play music as loud as she wanted, and we'd dance barefoot on this very floor. Just me and her, our laughter echoing through the walls. That apartment, it didn't just hold memories, it held my sacrifices. Every inch of it was stitched with the life I gave up so she could have one. She was bright. Oh, she was so bright. Top of her class, scholarships. She made me proud every second. And when she moved out for college, I cried for a week. Not because I was sad, but because I missed hearing her say, "Night, Mama," before bed. And when she came back home, I welcomed her with open arms. She said she just needed time to reset. The city had been too harsh. Her job hadn't worked out. Her boyfriend turned out to be someone else entirely. I told her she could stay as long as she needed. That's what mothers do. For the first few months, it felt like the old days, movie nights, cooking together, her head resting on my shoulder as we watched TV. But then slowly, she started changing. Her words sharpened. Her kindness grew scarce. She brought in boxes of expensive skincare designer shoes. She stopped contributing to the groceries. Then she stopped eating with me altogether. I'd make her favorite soup, and she'd say she was going out with friends. Friends I never met. Friends who I realized later were mostly real estate types. I caught a glimpse of one of her notebooks one night. It was open on the dining table. Scribbled in the corner were notes about square footage, market values, estimated rental income. She'd been researching the building. Our building. I felt something in my chest twist. But still, I stayed silent. I didn't want to accuse her of anything. I wanted to believe she was just curious, maybe trying to help, maybe thinking of investing someday. But deep down, something in me knew. Then she asked about the lease, asked who owned the unit. I told her I'd signed a long-term agreement years ago. She nodded, too quickly. One day, I overheard her on the phone. She was in the hallway, and I was just behind the kitchen wall. "She has no idea. I'm just going to let her think she still runs the place. Give it a few more months, and I'll make my move." I didn't confront her. I just sat down at the kitchen table, my heart pounding so hard I thought it might crack the mug in my hand. She was talking about me, about her own mother. That night, I couldn't sleep. I lay awake thinking of the little girl who used to cry when I left for my night shift. The one who drew me hearts on every birthday card. The one I raised with everything I had. I couldn't understand how she'd turned into this cold, calculating woman. Or maybe I didn't want to. I started going through old photo albums. Her baby pictures. Her first school play. Us at the beach. Our feet covered in sand. Our faces sunburned and smiling. I whispered to the pictures, "Where did you go?" But they didn't answer. I made coffee at 3 a.m. and sat by the window staring at the city lights, wondering if I'd failed her somehow. If maybe love hadn't been enough. The next day, she handed me a pamphlet about senior communities. She said it like she was offering me a gift. "They have yoga classes and gardening. You'd be around people your age. People my age." I smiled politely, took the pamphlet, said I'd consider it, But that was the day something inside me woke up for good. I pulled out the folder from the stereo cabinet. I started flipping through the paperwork. The deed, the proof of ownership, not just for our unit, but for the entire building. She had no idea. I'd kept it secret for decades. It was my safety net. She thought I was just another old woman clinging to the past, but I was the one holding the strings. And if she wanted to play this game, she was going to lose. The next sign came wrapped in legal language. A thin envelope slid under my door one Tuesday morning. I thought it was a flyer at first until I saw the return address. It was a law firm. Her law firm. I sat down slowly at the kitchen table before I opened it. My fingers trembled just slightly. I took a deep breath and unfolded the letter. She was filing for tenancy rights. Claimed she had established residency over 12 months, that she contributed to household expenses, and that she had been emotionally mistreated. She was petitioning for control of the unit. Of my home? I laughed. Not because it was funny, but because it was absurd. I had paid every bill. I had cooked every meal. And I had tiptoed around her moods like I was the guest. Mistreated, she hadn't hugged me in months, hadn't said thank you in longer. That night, I didn't sleep. I sat with my old journal flipping through entries. There were pages from years ago, entries about her coming home from school, crying about us eating noodles when money was tight, about the day I bought her that used bicycle, and she screamed with joy. How did we get here? I wanted to confront her. I wanted to yell, to scream, to ask her what I had done to deserve this betrayal. But I didn't. I needed her to believe she was still in control. I needed her to think I was weak. So I nodded when she asked how my day was. I smiled when she said she'd be gone all weekend with friends. And as soon as she left, I opened my laptop and emailed my lawyer. Subject line, begin full asset evaluation. I spent the weekend gathering everything: tax documents, ownership records, proof of every payment I'd made over the years. I even called Mr. Lennox, the old building manager who had retired a decade ago. He still remembered me, still called me Ms. G. He said, I knew you'd call one day, knew you'd need to set something straight. I told him what was happening. His voice went quiet. Then he said, whatever you need, I've got your back. She doesn't know who she's messing with. On Sunday evening, she returned. Shopping bags in hand. Expensive perfume trailing behind her like a cloud. She didn't even look at me when she walked in. Just said, hope you thought about the pamphlet. I smiled. I did. She didn't catch the edge in my voice. Over the next few days, I kept up the act. I baked. I offered her tea. I watched reality shows with her and asked questions. And meanwhile, my lawyer was preparing the documents. It wasn't just the unit I owned. It was the entire building. All 12 units. Every stairwell, every pipe, every tile. Years ago, I had invested in a silent trust. And when the original landlord passed away, I was offered first rights. I bought it in full. It had been in my name ever since. I had never told her. I never thought I'd need to. I just wanted to live peacefully, quietly. But peace was no longer on the table. She pushed too far. And I was done folding. A week later, she called another lawyer. This one left a voicemail. Hi, this is regarding a formal notice of cohabitation dispute. Please call us back. I saved the voicemail, sent it to my attorney. Then I printed it and taped it to the inside of the folder I'd kept since 2003. That folder was thicker now. On Friday, I received the valuation of the building. It had appreciated far beyond what I imagined. The neighborhood had grown. So had my equity. She thought she was fighting for one apartment. She didn't know I could sell the whole damn building. And I was going to. Not out of spite. Not for revenge. but because she made me realize something. She didn't see me as her mother anymore. She saw me as a stepping stone, a thing in her way. And if that's what I was to her, then I had to move. But I wouldn't move out. I'd move her out. That night, I took one last look at the apartment with her things scattered around. Designer boots by the door, a half-finished smoothie on the counter. Her noise, her chaos, her dismissive glances. They had filled this place for too long. It wasn't home anymore. It was a battlefield, and I had just decided to win. I stopped talking, not just to her, but to everyone. I canceled my weekly calls with my cousin Marcy. I stopped answering the group chat with the women from church. I needed silence, not out of sadness, not out of weakness, but because every sound now felt like interference. I was building something, quietly, methodically, and I didn't want anyone to hear the scaffolding creak. She thought I was sulking. I could see it in the way she rolled her eyes when I passed her in the hallway. In the way she spoke louder on the phone, laughing, making sure I could hear her say things like, "She's still here." I know, right, clinging to that old place like it's hers. It was mine, more than she could ever know. She didn't ask why I wasn't speaking, didn't ask if I was okay. I was no longer her mother in her eyes. I was just a roadblock. But in my silence, I found power. I watched. I noticed the patterns. When she left, when she returned. What mail she was getting. The kinds of people who called. She was getting desperate. That much was clear. She had already spoken to 2 different realtors. I recognized the names. One of them had sold a unit downstairs 2 years ago. She thought the building was up for grabs. She thought she could stake her claim. So I started making my own calls, discreet ones. I reached out to brokers, to property attorneys, to people who owed me favors. I never said her name. Never once mentioned her relationship to me. I kept it all professional, clean, untraceable. One man, an older broker named Hal, asked, "Why now?" I told him, "Because the building needs a new future." He said, "I'll get you top dollar. You've been sitting on a gold mine." I smiled. Not because of the money, but because he was right. I had waited. I had endured. I had trusted. And now, I was ready to act. Each evening, while she scrolled through her phone on the couch, I was in my room signing digital documents, reviewing listings, approving inspections. She thought I was just watching my soaps. She had no idea I was 2 steps from signing away the entire building. I didn't want revenge. I wanted freedom. And yes, I wanted her to feel the weight of what she'd done. I imagined the look on her face when she found out. Not because I craved her pain, but because I wanted her to see that I wasn't the fool she thought I was. I wanted her to feel that cold snap of realization of consequences finally catching up. One afternoon, I overheard her on another call. "Yeah, she's practically catatonic now. Doesn't say a word. It's honestly kind of pathetic." I wrote that word down. Pathetic. Folded the piece of paper. Tucked it into my journal. I wanted to remember the moment she dismissed me for the last time. Then came the night she crossed a line I never thought she would. I came home from a late walk just around the block to clear my head and found the locks changed. I stood there for a moment, keys in hand, staring at the door. My own door. The one I had opened with groceries in my arms, with scraped knees and feverish kids, with birthday cakes and tears and packages and everything in between. And now, I couldn't get in. I knocked. Once, twice. She opened it, barely, just enough to let her face peek through. "Sorry," she said. "It's for security. I didn't know when you'd be back." I didn't say a word, just turned and walked back down the hallway. I stayed at a nearby hotel that night. Didn't cry. Didn't rage. I ordered tea, sat by the window, watched the city move. And in the morning, I called Hal and said, "List it. Full speed." She wanted me gone. She wanted to erase me. So I gave her what she wanted, just not the way she imagined. I didn't return home that week. I stayed gone. Left her wondering. Let her enjoy her false victory. And meanwhile, I signed the final papers. The building was officially on the market. The offers started rolling in immediately. Hal had been right, it was a gold mine. 12 units, all soon to belong to someone else, including hers, especially hers. The call came on a Wednesday morning. Hal's voice was brisk, excited. "We've got a buyer. Full cash offer. They want a quick close." I looked out the hotel window, the city humming below like a different world now. "Do it," I said. My voice didn't even shake. It felt like pressing a lever I'd been holding for decades. And with that one sentence, I ended a chapter my daughter didn't even know she was part of. She hadn't texted, hadn't called. I imagined she thought I was sulking in a friend's spare room licking old wounds. Or maybe she thought she'd won, and I was too embarrassed to fight. Either way, she was wrong. I waited one more week before returning. I used the old key, the backup I'd hidden in the community planter outside the lobby. She never thought to look there. Her arrogance made her lazy. When I walked in, she was on the couch in leggings, laptop on her knees, sipping one of those green drinks. She didn't even look up. "Thought you moved out," she muttered. I walked past her and into my room. Shut the door gently, the same way I had months ago when this all began. But this time, I was calm for a different reason. This time, I knew how it would end. The building sold 3 days later. The paperwork was finalized, filed, transferred. I was no longer the landlord. A real estate firm now held that title. But I was still in contact with Hal. I still knew what was coming. I waited until the official notices were sent. One for each unit, including hers. A letter in a white envelope posted clearly on the door. She found it late one afternoon. I was in the kitchen slicing apples. I heard the pause in her footsteps, the long silence. Then the paper tearing. "What is this?" she asked. I didn't answer. I sliced another apple. She walked in holding the paper like it was a dead thing. "Mom, this says the building's been sold." I nodded. "Calm? Cool? Who and what does this mean?" Her voice cracked just slightly. "It means we're no longer residents," I said. "New management takes over at the end of the month?" She stared at me, eyes wide, lips parting. You can't just—" "I didn't," I said. "The owner did." "But you don't even know the owner." I looked her dead in the eyes. "Don't I?" That was the first time I saw her fear. Not panic, not anger. Real fear. The kind that comes when the ground beneath your feet starts to crack. She dropped the letter on the counter. "Where are we supposed to go?" I placed the apple slices in a bowl, calm as ever. "You'll figure it out." "You've got to be kidding me. You'd really let your own daughter be evicted?" I looked at her, this stranger, wearing my daughter's face. "You tried to take this place from me. Legally. You wanted me out. You changed the locks. You mocked me behind closed doors. And now you want protection." She opened her mouth, then closed it. The silence between us was deep, final. She left that night, slamming the door behind her. I didn't follow. I sat at the table eating apple slices one by one, feeling every piece of bitterness dissolve. The building would be emptied by month's end, renovated, modernized, gentrified probably. But that wasn't my concern anymore. I had already made arrangements for my next place, a quiet coastal town with wide porches and neighbors who wave. I didn't need much, just peace. She texted once. "You win." I didn't reply, because this was never about winning. It was about reclaiming what I gave up for her, and learning that sometimes love isn't about holding on, it's about letting go. The moving trucks arrived one by one. Residents came and went with boxes in their arms, memories trailing behind them like shadows. I watched from the bay window, sipping tea. No tears left, no regrets. Just quiet. I'd spoken with each tenant privately before the final sale. Made sure the older ones received generous compensation. Wrote character letters for those who needed new leases. Some hugged me. Some cried. A few thanked me for all those years they didn't know I'd been the owner. But not her. She returned 2 days before the final deadline, dragging in late-night suitcases and a face full of disbelief. "I thought you'd undo it," she said, dropping her things with a heavy thud. "I thought you were bluffing." I didn't answer. Just kept wrapping dishes in old newspaper, my hands steady, my breath calm. She wandered the apartment like a stranger, touching walls, opening drawers. Then she slammed one shut. "You really sold it. You sold everything. Even my room." "Your room?" I turned to her, eyes locking. "You mean the one I paid for?" "Maintained. Heated in winter and cooled in summer." "That room? You're unbelievable." "No, sweetheart," I said gently. "I'm finally clear." She paced the kitchen, running a hand through her hair, frustration spilling from every movement. "Where am I supposed to go?" "You've had months to figure that out," I said. "But you spent them scheming." "That wasn't scheming. I just wanted some stability. I wanted to feel like this place was mine. And you thought the way to get that was to threaten your mother with legal action?" I said, eyebrows raised. "You wanted ownership without love, power without responsibility." She stared at me as if seeing me for the first time. I don't think she'd ever considered how her words felt from my side. I placed the final dish into the padded box and taped it shut. "You never asked me what I wanted," I said more softly this time. "You just assumed I'd roll over." "I thought you'd always be here," she whispered. "I was," I said, "until you tried to erase me." She sat down at the table, suddenly quiet. I could see the thoughts spinning behind her eyes. Regret, confusion, fear. All the things she should have felt months ago, now too late to matter. We sat like that for a long time. Two women in a room that once held lullabies and birthday candles, now just silence and cardboard boxes. Finally, she said, "So that's it." "That's it," I replied. "I leave in 2 days. The keys go to the new owner. You'll need to be gone by then, too. I don't have anywhere lined up." "You've had all the resources," I said. "I gave you time, shelter, support, even when you turned on me." She didn't argue. For once, she didn't have a comeback. That night, I heard her crying. Not the loud, manipulative kind. The real kind. The muffled sobs of someone realizing they'd lost something they couldn't buy back. I stayed in my room. I didn't go to her. I didn't reach out. I let her sit in the mess she made. Because sometimes the only way people grow is when the noise of their pride finally fades, and they're left with only themselves. In the morning, she was gone, left a note on the table. Short. No apologies. Just, "I'll figure things out. Don't worry about me." I read it twice. Then I folded it and placed it in the back of my journal. I'd been a mother for too long to believe in fairy tale endings. But I believed in justice, and justice had finally knocked. By the time the last moving box was taped shut, I didn't feel pain. I felt free. I took one final walk through the apartment, touched every wall, whispered goodbye to each room. The hallway where she'd learned to walk. The kitchen where we danced barefoot. I wasn't leaving those memories behind. I was taking the lesson. Sometimes your own child will break your heart wide open. But if you're strong enough, you can build something new from the pieces. She came back 3 months later. Not to fight. Not to reclaim. Just to talk. I was on the porch of my new home, rocking gently in a chair that didn't creak. The sea was just down the road, the scent of salt drifting through the breeze. I saw her before she reached the steps. She looked smaller somehow. Paler. Like someone who'd been living in places that never felt like home. She didn't say anything at first. Just stood there clutching her bag like it might fall apart in her hands. "I wasn't sure if you'd still be here," she said. I tilted my head. "Where else would I be? I just didn't know if you'd want to see me." I didn't answer right away. I let the wind speak first. Let the silence stretch just enough to feel real. "Sit," I finally said, motioning to the second chair. She lowered herself slowly, carefully, like the porch might reject her too. For a while, we just rocked in unison. The rhythm of two people tied by blood and broken by choices. She spoke first. "I lost the condo I tried to get. The lawyer dropped me. The friends I had disappeared when the money did." I nodded. Not unkindly, just to show I was listening. "I was angry," she said. "But not just at you. At myself. At how things turned out. I thought I could fix everything if I just took control. Like if I owned something, I'd finally feel safe." "You always had a home," I said. "But you mistook love for weakness." She looked down at her hands. "I know." The confession hung there. Not a fix, not a bandage, but a start. "I didn't come to ask for anything," she said quickly. "I swear, I'm not here for money or shelter. I just wanted to say I'm sorry." I studied her, the way her shoulders curled inward now, how her voice didn't carry the same fire, only ash. "You hurt me," I said. "More than I ever thought you could. Not because of what you did, but because you knew what that apartment meant to me. You knew, and you still tried to take it." "I did." Her voice broke. I thought I was being strong, but I was just scared. I thought if I didn't secure something, I'd lose everything. And in the process, I lost you. "You almost did," I said. She looked up then, eyes red. Almost I didn't answer. I reached beside my chair and pulled out the letter I had written weeks earlier. I hadn't mailed it. I hadn't even sealed it. But it was waiting. "For you," I said, handing it over. She opened it slowly, read the first few lines, then stopped and pressed it to her chest. "I didn't know how to come back from what I did," she whispered. "Most people don't," I said, "but the ones who try, they're worth listening to." We didn't hug. Not then. But her hand rested on the arm of my chair, just barely touching mine. That night, I made tea. We sat inside in the warmth of lamplight and old quilts. I told her about the new town, the neighbors, the way the sea sounds like a lullaby at dusk. She listened, really listened, and for the first time in years, so did I. The next morning, I found her in the garden. She was crouched beside the rosemary bush, her fingers brushing the leaves like they were fragile things. I stood at the screen door for a while, just watching her. The sunlight hit her hair, and for a moment, I could almost see the little girl she used to be, the one who used to pick wildflowers and bring them to me in crumpled napkins. She looked up and smiled. A real one. Not forced, not masked, just soft. "I forgot how good the earth smells in the morning," she said. I stepped outside. The porch creaked under my feet. "You were always drawn to the garden," I said. "Even when you were tiny, you'd sneak out and dig your hands in the dirt." "I think I wanted to grow something," she said. "Maybe I still do." I nodded. Growing something is easy. Keeping it alive, that's the hard part. She didn't argue. just looked back down at the plants, her expression full of something I couldn't quite name. Maybe regret. Maybe hope. We spent the day in silence, each doing our own little tasks. I made a stew. She swept the porch. I watched her out the window, moving slower, more thoughtfully, as if she was trying to remember what being home used to feel like. That evening, we sat together again on the porch. The air was cooler, the kind that carries old memories in its breeze. "I want to earn your trust back," she said, "but I don't know how." "Start by not asking for it all at once," I said. "Trust doesn't return in a rush, it trickles." She nodded. "I'll wait. I'll keep showing up." "You don't have to be perfect," I said, "just honest." She looked at me then, and her eyes were different. Not just sad, clearer, wiser. "I wish I could take it all back," she said. "Every word, every threat. The locks. God, the locks." "You can't," I said, "but you can build forward." "I'm not even sure who I am anymore," she whispered. "Then that's your first task," I said. "Find out who you are without stepping on others to get there." She laughed softly. "You always had a way of making it sound simple." "It's never simple," I replied. "But it is possible." She stayed the night again. No assumptions, no demands, just a guest room and a borrowed toothbrush. She made the bed in the morning, left a note that said, "Thank you." Nothing else. That day, I opened my old box of letters. The ones I'd written her but never sent. Some were dated years back. Birthdays, graduations, even quiet Tuesdays when I just missed her. I read a few aloud alone in the sunroom. My voice cracked on some lines. Others made me smile. And when I got to the most recent one, the one from the week I moved, I read it twice. It ended with the words, "I will always love you, but I will no longer shrink for you." I folded it and placed it in the fireplace. Watched the edges curl, then turn to ash. That wasn't the letter she needed anymore. Because this new chapter, however fragile, didn't need old wounds. It needed new ground. And for the first time in a long time, I was willing to offer it. She returned every Sunday after that, always knocking, never assuming. She'd bring flowers sometimes, or cinnamon rolls from the old bakery we used to love. The first few visits, we didn't talk much. We worked side by side in the garden, or she'd help me fold laundry while the kettle sang. It was awkward, sure, like trying to walk barefoot across ice tents, uncertain. But week by week, the silence softened. One evening, in late spring, she brought a photo album. "I found this when I was cleaning out the last of my things," she said. "Figured it belonged here." She set it on the table between us, and for a moment, neither of us moved. The cover was worn leather. Blue, faded in spots where little fingers had once pressed too hard. I opened it slowly. There she was, 5 years old, in a tutu and cowboy boots. Her smile crooked, her knees scraped. I could still hear the sound of her giggles echoing in the old apartment hallway. Page after page, I watched her grow. Watched myself grow, too. From a tired single mother in oversized sweatshirts to a woman who had carved out a life moment by moment. "You took all these," she whispered. "Everyone." I nodded. It was all I had to hold on to sometimes. "I didn't realize how much you gave up," she said, "until I tried to take something from you that I never earned." I closed the album, looked her in the eyes. "I gave you everything I had, not because I expected repayment, but because that's what love is. You give, and sometimes you get forgotten anyway." She swallowed hard. "I remember now. That night over dinner, she asked something unexpected. 'Can I write you letters?' I blinked. Letters. Yeah, I don't always say the right thing in person, but I think better when I write." I smiled, something deep and unspoken easing in my chest. I'd like that. And so they came. One each week, sometimes two. Handwritten. No email, no texts, just ink and paper and emotion. She wrote about her memories, her mistakes, her fears. She wrote about how she had to unlearn the parts of herself that thought power meant domination. She wrote about the day she realized she was becoming someone she used to pity. And in those pages, I saw the daughter I remembered. Not the perfect child, but the real one. I started writing back. Slowly at first, just small notes, then full letters. We began building something we never had before: honest connection. I still didn't let her move in. She didn't ask, but she came often, helped with the garden, cooked with me, asked questions about my past that she'd never cared about before. One day she said, "You never told me what happened to your parents." I looked out the window. They weren't built for motherhood. I had to teach myself what love looked like. Sometimes I got it wrong, but I tried. "You did more than try," she said. "You saved me." Over and over. I didn't cry. I'd done enough of that. But something loosened in me, like an old knot untying. Forgiveness isn't a moment. It's a process. A long one. And we were just beginning. But for the first time, I believed we'd make it. Not because she was my daughter, but because she was finally acting like someone who wanted to earn love, not claim it. The letters she wrote became a ritual. I'd find them tucked under my front doormat or nestled between the pages of a garden journal she gifted me. Each one a confession, a reflection, a gentle step closer. I kept them all in a wooden box, the same one that used to hold her macaroni art and scribbled spelling tests. Full circle, I suppose. But there was one letter I hadn't shared yet. A letter I wrote to her the day after she changed the locks. It wasn't angry. It wasn't cruel. It was honest in a way I couldn't be face to face. I had written it with a trembling hand, crying into the night. If you needed space, I wrote you could have asked. If you needed more from me, you could have said. But you didn't. You hurt me without warning, like I didn't matter. And that's a pain I don't know how to carry. I never gave it to her. I wasn't sure if I should. It belonged to the version of me that still begged to be seen. And maybe that woman didn't live here anymore. Still, I kept it. Folded, worn at the edges. Not as punishment, just as memory. That summer, we started taking long walks together. Slow, thoughtful. Down the boardwalk. Along the shore. She asked questions she used to avoid. "Did you ever resent me?" she asked once. Sometimes I said, when the nights were long and the money was gone. When I skipped meals so you could eat and you didn't even know. She nodded. I think I knew. Somewhere deep down. But I didn't want to carry that guilt. "I never wanted you to," I said. "I just wanted you to carry the kindness that comes from knowing someone loved you that hard." She stopped walking, just looked at me. I do now. Later that week, I found a small box on my kitchen table. Inside was a key, not to anything in my house, but a symbolic one handcrafted from driftwood and brass engraved with one word: trust. Her note said, "I can't take back what I did, but I can keep showing you who I'm becoming." I held that key in my hand for a long while. Trust, such a small word, such a colossal thing. I didn't say anything about it the next time we saw each other. I just let her see it hanging on the nail by the door. That was enough. One afternoon, I told her about the letters I used to write, but never send. "Can I read them?" she asked. "Not yet," I said. "Some are too heavy. Some were written in my worst pain. I need to make peace with them before I share them." She understood. That was the difference now. She didn't push. She let things breathe. I began writing new letters too, not out of pain, but gratitude. One to my younger self, thanking her for surviving. One to my future granddaughter, if she ever comes, telling her who I am, not just the mother who got hurt, but the woman who got back up. And yes, one more to my daughter. This time with no edges, no anger, just warmth. It read, "You broke me, but you didn't end me. You scared me, but you didn't silence me. You left, but you also returned. And that's why I still leave the porch light on." I placed it in her mailbox the next morning. She called me that night, her voice soft. "I read it," she said, "and I cried for an hour. Then I read it again. Then I held it to my chest and realized I want to be the kind of woman who deserves a mother like you." That was the closest we ever got to closure. Not a final door slam, not a neat bow, but something real, something earned. We weren't the same as before. We were better. I was pruning the hydrangeas when I saw the car pull into the gravel driveway. A compact little thing, dusty from the road, the kind that belonged to someone who didn't mind imperfections. She stepped out first, my daughter. And then the back door opened, and out came a little girl, about 5, hair the color of honey, big brown eyes that scanned the porch like it was a storybook come to life. She stood still for a moment, gripping a small, stuffed bear. Then she turned to my daughter and whispered something. My daughter nodded. The girl stepped forward. "Are you Grandma?" My throat closed up. I wiped my hands on my apron and nodded. Yes, I am." She beamed. "Mama said you have a garden. Do you have butterflies?" "I do," I said, my voice softer than I'd ever heard it. "Want to help me find one?" She ran to me like we'd known each other forever. And just like that, a piece of my heart that had been asleep for years cracked open and bloomed. My daughter followed slower, eyes wide, uncertain, watching me with a mix of hope and caution. I saw the bags in her hands, the careful way she held herself. She wasn't assuming anything. "I told her we were just visiting," she said quietly. "I didn't want to overstep." "You didn't," I said. "She's beautiful. Her name's June," she said. "Born in May, of course." We both laughed, the awkwardness melting slightly. The afternoon passed like a dream. June picked marigolds and chased dragonflies. She called me Grandma 10 times, maybe more. I let her dig in. The soil showed her where the worms hide. She didn't flinch, just smiled, wide dirt on her nose, joy all over her. Inside, my daughter helped set the table. She moved around the kitchen like it was sacred ground. Quiet, careful. "I haven't been in this house in over a year," she said. "You're welcome," I replied, "as long as you know it's not owed to you." She nodded. "I do." After dinner, June fell asleep on the couch, her bear tucked under her chin. My daughter and I sat at the table, a pot of chamomile between us. "I almost didn't come," she said. "I was scared you'd shut the door." "I almost did," I admitted, but something in me said, "You had someone new with you now? And maybe she deserves a chance." She looked at her daughter. She changed everything for me, made me realize how broken I'd become, and how easy it is to pass that on if you're not careful. I watched June sleep, her chest rising and falling, a little miracle with dirt under her nails and a heart full of light. "I want her to know you," my daughter said, "not just for sleepovers and cookies. I want her to know the woman who taught me how to love, even if I forgot for a while." I reached across the table, my hand on hers. "Then don't forget again." She didn't pull away. That night I watched them drive away. June asleep in the back seat, her bear slipping sideways. My daughter gave me a long look, one filled with promise, not of perfection, but of effort, of roots being planted again, in soil that had been tilled, torn, healed, and waiting, always waiting. after they left, the house felt different. Not empty, just settled. Like the wind had passed through and stirred something that needed to be shaken loose. I walked through the quiet halls, brushing my fingers along the picture frames. One by one, I pulled them down, cleaned the glass, rearranged the memories. I added a new one too. June in the garden, holding a worm, with a proud grin on her face. A week later, a letter arrived. Not handwritten this time. Official. From the trust firm. I sat down to open it with steady hands. The numbers were larger than I remembered. The account had grown over time. Investments I'd barely thought about had matured. The proceeds from the sale of the building had bloomed into something far greater than I'd expected. I already knew what I'd do. I called the firm, gave them the directive I'd written months earlier but never filed. Transfer the principal into a long-term educational trust, I said. Beneficiary June Emerson. The voice on the other end paused. No allocation for the daughter? No, I said firmly. She had her chance. This is for the next generation. I wasn't angry anymore. I didn't do it to punish. I did it to protect. To give that bright-eyed girl a future unburdened by old mistakes. I wrote a letter to accompany the trust. June would receive it when she turned 18. I kept the language simple. I loved your mother once, even when she forgot who she was. And I love you now, because you remind me who we can all become when we choose grace. This trust isn't money. It's an apology I never got to make to myself. Use it well. When I sealed the envelope, I felt something I hadn't felt in years. Closure. My daughter called that evening. We're thinking about visiting again next weekend if that's okay. It is, I said. She hesitated. Thank you for letting us come back, even when we didn't deserve it. Deserving is a tricky word, I said. What matters more is who you're trying to be now. I want to be better, she whispered. I know. And she was. I saw it in her posture and her voice. I saw it in the way she let June speak for herself, didn't interrupt or correct or redirect. She was letting her daughter bloom in a way she never let herself. One afternoon, we all sat in the garden. June handed me a piece of paper. I drew us, she said. It's you and Mama and me, and the tree we planted. I looked at the drawing, 3 stick figures under a massive tree, roots spreading wide, leaves falling gently. I love it, I said, hugging her close. My daughter smiled. She said the tree means we'll always be connected, even when it's windy. I laughed, touched my chest. She's wiser than all of us. In the quiet moments, I sometimes still thought of the apartment, of the walls that heard every fight, every lullaby, every broken promise, and act of forgiveness. I don't regret selling it. It was never about the bricks. It was about the boundary, about reclaiming my voice. And now, I had more than walls. I had a legacy, one rooted not in control, but in choice. The sea was calm that evening, a kind of quiet that wraps around you like an old shawl. I walked the beach alone, the hem of my jeans damp from wading in the tide. My feet pressed into the sand, each step soft, erasing itself behind me. I liked that the way the ocean didn't hold grudges, the way it let things go. The sun dipped low, painting the sky in streaks of fire and gold. I stood there a while, arms folded, watching it, breathing, remembering. This was how it ended, not with courtrooms or screaming matches, not with slammed doors or revenge, but with breath, with the sound of waves, with forgiveness imperfect and slow. When I got home, the porch light was already on. I hadn't turned it on. My daughter had. She was inside with June helping her finish a puzzle. I stood in the doorway for a moment watching them. It was such a simple scene. 2 people at a table, one mother, one child. But I saw everything. I saw who I had been, the woman who sacrificed, who broke, who healed. I saw who she was, becoming a woman learning how to stay, how to soften, how to love without fear. And I saw the future, this little girl, with eyes like sunlight and a spirit that bent but didn't snap. I walked in. June looked up and ran to me. "Grandma, I saved the last piece for you." I knelt beside her and pressed the final piece into place. My daughter watched. Her eyes shimmered. But this time, she didn't cry. Later, when June was asleep, we sat on the porch again. No words at first. Just the night air and the gentle creak of old wood. She handed me a letter. I recognized the envelope. My handwriting. "You left this in the back of the journal," she said. I wasn't sure if I was supposed to read it. But I did. I nodded. "I figured you might." She looked down. "I didn't know how much I hurt you. I didn't know I was becoming the very thing I swore I'd never be." "Sometimes we don't know until the damage is done," I said. She met my gaze. "I'm not asking you to forget, just to keep the door open." I looked at her. Really looked. Not as my child, not as the woman who betrayed me, but as someone trying, failing, trying again. "I never closed it," I said. She reached into her bag and pulled out something wrapped in cloth. "I was saving this for the right time," she said. It was a framed deed, not of ownership, but of transfer. Her name had been added to the trust only as caretaker until June was of age. She'd signed it, notarized, it made it legal. "I don't want to take any more," she said. "I want to give back, to be the steward of what you built. Until she's ready." I held the frame in my lap. "This isn't about money," I said. "I know," she replied. "It's about legacy. And I finally understand what that means." We sat there until the stars came out, until the air grew cold and the night crept in like a lullaby. And in that moment, I let go of the last thread of anger I'd held. Because she didn't just come home. She rebuilt it, one piece at a time.